So when you talk about your childhood specifically, I mean, it carries on. It carries over to everyone. Like we all have these experiences that affect us now and who we are. How do we break down the negative side of those? Like, is there something we can do to sort of change that, those beliefs that we've installed in ourselves to change our way of thinking now?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Because so much of personal growth and motivation and inspiration has made us aware that we've got these limiting beliefs that come from a time oftentimes we don't even remember, and they're informing the way we feel today, they're informing the way we act today. When you get into the metaphysical conversation, they're informing what we're co-creating with intelligence itself and the coincidences and synchronicities that show up in our lives. So how do we change that? The first step is awareness. And one of the things that we found is that until you've developed a practice of it, it can be very difficult to notice your thoughts. I mean, we're not all sitting around spending our time meditating in ashrams. Like, we're living in the world. We're responding to emails. We're engaging, good or bad, with social media. We're working with our children or our teams or our partner, whatever it is. So it's not like we're able to just sit back and observe our thinking. And so one of the things that we teach is to start by noticing your emotions. And one of the distinctions that we teach is that there's only two states of being, meaning like kind of two emotional states you can be in. We call them powerful states or primal states. Powerful states are states of being that feel good: joy, curiosity, excitement, compassion, passion, emotions that feel good. Primal states are states that feel bad. So you've got boredom, anxiety, depression, jealousy, anger, the emotional spectrum that you feel when you're comparing yourself to others, or you're in overwhelm, or you're in indecision. So you've only got these two states. And so what we teach is to pay attention to how you feel in this binary model, because if you ask someone how they feel, they still may not be able to describe it. But if you say, do you feel good or do you feel bad? That's really easy. And so when we're feeling bad or we're in a primal state, that's the beginning of the journey of now looking at the thinking that is manufacturing that feeling that doesn't feel so good, because that's the thinking that we want to start to work with. If you're not aware of the thinking that's causing you to move into a primal state or suffering, if you're not aware of the limiting belief, how do you work with it, right? Now, self-awareness isn't enough. We want to become aware, and then we want to eventually transform the pattern of thinking. We want to change the neural networks. We want to resculpt the dynamic or the resonance of our nervous system. Because as we go even deeper into this conversation, we're powerful creators that are creating in a vibrational reality, and your nervous system is both what is receiving information and transmitting information into creation itself. So this game that we're talking about of using your mind to actually rewire your own brain and recondition your own nervous system is like the single most important conversation I think we can be in. But you start out with an awareness that I've moved into a primal state, and a secondary distinction, which sometimes takes some convincing for people, that the only cause of the emotion that I'm feeling is my own thinking. It's the meaning I'm giving the experience I'm having. The experience isn't actually creating the reaction in me. It's the meaning or the thinking I have or the belief I have about the experience. When you get terminated from your job and you become afraid, it's not the termination from your job that's causing the fear. It's what you believe about having just been terminated. Right? When you're in an argument with your significant other and you become angry, it's not what your significant other said to you that's actually manufacturing the emotion in you. It's the meaning that you're giving to what they said to you. And that's a really powerful realization, because that means our own joy, we're fully responsible for, right? That it's not informed by anything external to us.
I love the outlook aspect of it, of how your perception of it changes everything. But just on self-awareness, just to stick with that for a second, how do you, or do you have to convince someone that they need to seek self-awareness, or do they have to reach some sort of low point? Because I think it's just that the precipice of going over to sort of find self-awareness is the difficult part. Do they have to hit like a rock bottom to sort of sit searching for it?
Yeah, that's a question I get so often. Like, do you have to hit a rock bottom in order to then begin the journey of self-awareness and transformation? What I've seen historically is that, yes, that's the case, right? Sort of the mathematics of reality beats the drum of pain and discomfort louder and louder and louder until we're proverbially brought to our knees and there's nowhere to look but up. What I've been seeing more recently, though, is we have a generation of young people who are coming on board that are having exposure to these concepts before the deep patterns and pains set in. You know, you can go on Instagram and, you know, see a video by Satguru or Joe Dispenza or Tony Robbins or myself, you know, and go, wow, like I never really thought about that, you know? So we didn't have exposure to any of this before. It was, you know, the rogue discovery of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, or stumbling into a Jim Rohn seminar, or understanding that the Bible is also in many ways a manual for, you know, how to transform your mind rather than being conformed to the world. So I do think that the journey to evolution, which required a bottoming out historically, is changing, because education and information is now available to people in a more dispersed way. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, part of our mission is to develop a youth program called Inner University, where we can begin sharing these concepts with, right, you know, K through 12, you know, 5 years old and up, so that young people can begin to understand how their operating system functions, what emotions are, how to process them, learning powerful distinctions that likely you and I never learned. I can certainly only speak for myself, like to be with the experiences of my life rather than to try to change them. From the time we're born, right? You cry because that's your authentic experience of, you know, having your toy taken away. And what do your parents say? Don't cry. So there's this denial of our own experience of reality that starts from the very, very beginning. We express our joy as children and we're told to what? Calm down. And so we're conditioned from a very early age. And remember, this conditioning is going into a programming or a supercomputer called the human being, right? There's so much similarity between, you know, machines and machine learning and what we're seeing in neural networks, in artificial intelligence, and really it being derived from what we understand of the human brain, which is still very little. And so all of that programming is going into a system that is then going to begin to perpetuate that experience forward. And so when you really look at what's happening right now at a mass scale, is humanity is living in a reality that's not even real, right? We're viewing the experiences of our life through a lens that alters them. And at a fundamental level, we've been taught to deny the experience itself. And it's no wonder that we've become so fascinated with, you know, the machine that sits in our pocket and viewing other people's lives and their experiences, because we've essentially unlearned how to experience life for ourselves. And then when we experience life for ourselves and the emotions of it, it can become shocking. You know, when I came out of 12-step recovery and I was no longer drinking or drugging or sexing or smoking cigarettes, like that's a full-on frontal attack by life. So, you know, and life doesn't always feel good. And so this reawakening of our emotional spectrum can feel really uncomfortable at first, but it's the only way forward. It's the only way to heal. The absence of that is what's causing the majority of disease in the world. The absence of that is what's causing the majority of divorce in the world. The absence of that is what's causing dysfunctional parenting in the world. The absence of being willing to feel what we feel and to understand how to transform our past creates suffering. And if you look at all the problems in the world today, whether it's climate change or corporatocracy or child trafficking or predatory financial systems or pharmaceutical systems or bad governance, it's all by people who don't understand how to manage themselves emotionally. Because the truth is, happy people don't do the things that are causing the major problems in the world.